Hey, welcome to our study today called Hope for the Lost. We are looking at Genesis 18 today, and all this week we're looking at the whole chapter and the story about Abraham and the God of Abraham appearing to him. So if you remember back in Genesis chapter 18, we read of Abraham and Sarah's attempt at kind of helping the covenant promises along. Their plan, instead of helping, only caused problems within their household. The Bible tells us that their plan was not the will of God, but based on their own will. It was the will of the flesh. Now, this was a stumble in Abraham's walk of faith. In chapter 17, we saw some pivotal moments in the life of Abraham. First, we saw God change Abram's name to Abraham, from the exalted father to the father of multitudes. This change of name was to further impress upon Abraham the expansiveness of God's promise of descendants. Then God gave circumcision to Abraham as a covenant sign that would stand for as a visible representation of the spiritual reality of God's promises. Next, we had Abraham's wife, Sarai, receive a name change as well, just like her husband. And it came with a declaration that she would bear the promised child. Abraham's response to such a revelation was to laugh. And it wasn't a laugh of stark unbelief or doubt in the promises of God, but out of the inability to comprehend and really his ignorance. Abraham suggested that God use Ishmael to fulfill the promise. Ishmael was a teen by now and would be a fitting heir to Abraham, but God said no. The promised seed would have to come through Sarah. And so what seemed possible or impossible to man would be possible for God. And so we have arrived at chapter 18. The light of truth has broken into Abraham's world in chapter 17 and is continuing to grow here in this chapter. This long-awaited promises of God begin to be fulfilled in and around Abraham. And we'll see the light of God's intervention and coming down to Abraham. And Abraham's response will be really the perfect backdrop for the darkness and the depravity of man that we'll see in the following chapter, in chapter 19. So the chapter really breaks down into two main scenes here. In the first, we find the promise and the struggle to believe in verses 1 through 15. We've already seen how God gives Abraham assurances of the promises and is bolstering the faith of Abraham. Now we're going to see how he does the same thing for Sarah, which is amazing. He doesn't just hope Sarah makes it, he helps Sarah. Then in the second scene, we find the plan and the intercession. God has a plan, which has included Abraham and his prayers for the lost. There's a plan, and then that plan is revealed, and it prompts Abraham to intercede for the city that is about to be destroyed. And so we'll see that in the second part of that. So that's the plan for this study. Come back next time, and we'll begin with the promise and the struggle, and we'll look at the first 15 verses of chapter 18.